Hey everybody, my name's Nathan, and today I'm going to talk about design, and specifically design for the laser cutter in the makerspace. So we're going to go over some free resources that are out there, and Inkscape, which is a free vector graphics software similar to Adobe Illustrator. To start out, I'd just like to go over the Cedar Valley Makers website, because this is just a great place to come get resources for any of the tools in the space. You can come up here to the Resource Center, and we have links and information for every single tool. And of course, we're interested in the laser, so we'll just click on here. And this brings us to everything you need to know about the laser. We have the manual and some other resources, and there's even some project ideas under here. But what we're interested today is Inkscape. Inkscape is this free software. It's open source and it's available for all operating systems that I know of. And it's a great place to get started if you want to design something for the laser cutter. So you go to the download and pick your operating system and install it, and we'll get into using it in just a second. I'm not going to do a full tutorial on Inkscape. There's plenty of those out there, and I'll link a few in the description, but I will go over some details that you're going to want to pay attention to when you design for the laser. So here we are in a new document in Inkscape, and this is what you get when you open Inkscape up and you have the environment. And I would encourage you to go look at a couple of tutorials on how to use Inkscape. But for now, I'm just going to dive right in, and I'll speed it along until I get to the end of the process. So as you can see here, we're back in Inkscape, and I have kind of an outline of what I want to do. But before I go any farther, I want to make sure our scale is correct. So up here you can see the artboard is on a scale of what looks like millimeters. So between here and here is 100 millimeters. And that's great, but I'm not good at visualizing 100 millimeters, and I know the size of the laser bed is 24 by 36 inches. And obviously we don't want to take up all that space. So what I'm going to do is go and change the document properties, and we will set the units to inches, and that's all good. And then once we have that, something like 5 inches, and I think 5 inches is a little big. So I'm going to go ahead, select this, and just lock the width and the height, and bring it down till we like it. I think 2 inches is nice. So now we have a roughly 2-inch section, and we know the size of this. So when we print it off and export it to the laser, it should be about 2 inches in diameter. Now, as you can see, I've taken all the color out. Like, obviously, I could come in here and I could give things fill color, and I could, I could do whatever I wanted in here in Inkscape, but I want to make sure that I can see the line. We're going to cut this on the laser in vector mode, which means that the laser tool head is going to follow all of the lines, and it's not going to care about colors. It's not a color printer. So we'll want to, just to make things easier on ourselves, it's just best to have no fill color at all. And you get a better idea of what it's going to look like once you laser it out too. You see I'm putting my name on it because it looks exactly like me. We'll get the text on there and personalize it a little bit. Alright, so here we have what I think is just about the final product here. And so I'll talk about what we can do for different cuts and how to make this ready for the laser cutter. So one thing that I did while I was designing this is I tried not to make any part too small. It's a general rule of thumb, anything that's thinner than 1 millimeter is probably not going to do too well. Depending on the material, it might even burn up on the laser cutter. But even if you can get it cut out, it's possible that whatever it is, 1 millimeter is just too thin for it to stand up for very long. So it's just generally good to not go any thinner than that. Now for that, and that's mostly for cuts. For lines and engravings, you can go incredibly small. And that takes a little experimenting with, but you can get away with a lot there. On this design, there's only probably, I think, 3 parts that we want cut out. The rest of it is going to be etched on with lines. So here we have the hole that we're going to want to cut out, and so the best way to distinguish between what's going to be cut and what's going to be etched is by giving the path a color. So here I'm going to make everything that's going to be cut is going to be red. And when this imports into the laser, it'll show up that way. And I'm going to do the same thing with the outside here. So we have 2 colors, or well, 1 color, but two paths that will be cut. And then I don't know if I want to cut out these center parts, these holes here. I think we'll try it. We'll see what it looks like. Alright, so when the laser goes, everything in red will cut all the way through the piece of wood, and everything in black will stay the same, and it'll follow all the tool paths. So what we should get will look just like that, except for on a piece of wood, and you'll see a hole here, 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 and here, and then the rest of this background will be gone. And that's a little bit about laser design. So just to recap, when we're going through designing something for the laser, we want to make sure that When we're cutting things, we don't want any material that's smaller than a millimeter thick, and that's only for cutting. And we want to make sure we use, for the vector mode, and this is not for engraving, but for the vector mode on the laser, we want to make sure that everything is lines. We want all the lines to match up, so if we zoom in here on the edges, we don't want to see any gaps between lines, because that could be bad. If there's a gap in here, it probably won't cut your piece out all the way. There's a lot of little details you have to make sure you have right, but as long as everything is aligned and it's all connected, it should work. And then you want to make sure that you have the sizing on your artboard. You want to make sure you know what size you're designing to. In our case, it's about 2.25 inches, and that's a pretty big keychain. But you know, it's a good example. And you want to make sure that you color everything so it cuts the way you want when you import it into the full spectrum laser software. But other than that, I hope this was useful, and I hope you can do a little design of your own and come up with something you like. By no means is the laser cutter limited to keychains or other little trinkets. You can do some really interesting stuff with the laser, including boxes, which we'll make a box in the next video, and we'll play around with some more design tips that you can use, and that'll be the next video. So stay tuned, and happy making.